Where the Road Takes Me with John Greene on C103.
I have to admit that I hated history while going to school. Now, I just can't seem to get enough of it. And that's another reason why I'm enjoying my visit to Buttevant so much. The place is steeped in history. But because Buttevant is on the busy N20, people always seem to be in a hurry on this road. Taking time out to stop here is well worth it. Within easy reach of each other, you can check out St John's Church, the Franciscan Friary, Barry's Castle and Lumbert's Castle, to name but a few. The place is a virtual haven for those interested in history and archaeology. This evening we bring you the second of 3 programmes from this North Cork town. So, good evening and welcome to Where the Road Takes Me. The Obeg is a tributary of the Blackwater River. Its sloping west bank nestles the town of Buttevant. The surrounding farmland here is rich. The Ballyharra Mountains are close by to the northeast. When in Buttevant, you're roughly halfways between the cities of Cork and Limerick. Our discussion last week on the Friary and Lumbert's Castle has shown us that the town has a medieval background. In the latter half of last year, when the main streets were being resurfaced, a number of significant discoveries were made. The expertise of archaeologists were then required to study the remains of a town wall, a cobbled street and an underground chamber, which all date back to medieval times. An upright support, which appeared to be part of a gate arch, is now assumed to be the north gate of this medieval town, which was referred to in 1375. Noel Coleman is a member of Buttevant Heritage Society.
Well, we discovered the very likely North Gate, which is mentioned in documents, that was discovered during the excavations of the street to facilitate the renovation of the road.
What would the North Gate have been, Noel?
It would have been the entrance to the first block of the town.
Right.
The town was built in blocks according to a precise metrical system, and the North Gate would have been the entrance maybe to the marketplace. You know, they were very conscious of very much promoting the economy of the local produce was exported from Buttevant, and people brought the native Irish, so to speak, brought their produce here. It was taken through the gate and tolls probably charged on it, and then exported. And it was necessary to have it organised, to have a gate to process it or to bring the produce in to be weighed or whatever, and then exported.
And how excited were people here with this find? I suppose mixed reaction. On one side you had people who wanted to have the works completed, and on the other side it was a very exciting find.
Well, there was this conflict between, as you say, the inconvenience of the traffic regulations, and on the other hand the slow methodical way that archaeologists have to work to sift the evidence that they find. And in general, especially when the North Gate was found, and also a number of steps to a room about 6 feet down in the road, the present road, there was great excitement in Buttevant then, because we were discovering concrete evidence of what was in the historical documents about the town.
It's pretty evident so far that Buttevant is steeped in history, so you can stop, ramble around yourself and do your own discovering. Or you can join a guided tour every Saturday afternoon at 3. Anne Coughlin is a tour guide with Buttevant Heritage Group.
What the tour guiding part of the Heritage Group does is to take members of the public around to each of these sites and look at them as an individual unique site, talk about it, explain it, give a context. But also in the course of the tour guiding, we also give an overall picture of the medieval society at the time and show how each of the sites links up with the other and how it relates to the very, very powerful and very important to the Barry family, because they were a family of great renown. They were a family of vision, of ambition and of success, and Buttevant was an incredibly wealthy, successful trading town from the 1200s right up to the 14, 15, 16, 1700s, and that can't really be seen from the main street. It's really to be seen when you approach the river and look at the medieval sites that are along the banks of the river. And the tour guides give the members of the public a chance to see those sites and to appreciate just how magnificent they were in their day, because they are quite magnificent today, even though they are dilapidated and in poor state. So a group of us, 4 or 5 of us from the Heritage Group, we were trained by the Heritage Council on how to undertake a tour and how to take care of the people who join us on the tour. And that's what we do every Saturday, 3 o'clock. We meet outside the church and we take members of the public around on our tour, a different tour guide each week, so that we break up the summer between us. Right. So that's how it works.
And what sort of reaction have you been getting so far?
Very positive reaction. What we find is that we have a very strong online presence with our Medieval Buttevant Facebook page, and that has a huge presence, and we get an awful lot of our clientele, if you can call them that. They actually come from outside of Buttevant, and a lot of them are expats, born and reared in Buttevant, or with, we'll say, parents from Buttevant, grandparents from Buttevant, and they know the names of the places. They know about the friary, they know about the castle, they know about the mill, and they just come to see and experience it again. And what I particularly enjoy about the tours is that I meet these people and they will invariably bring stories to me about Buttevant as well, mostly funny stories, and it adds to the bank of stories we have about the town. And it's just lovely to be in a group where I'm giving the information. Like, I'm a blow-in into Buttevant. I'm married into the town, or into the area, so I'm not from the place, so a lot of it is new to me too. So it's lovely to hear people with family or who themselves were from Buttevant to tell of their memories of the sites, of the heritage of Buttevant. So it's not so much me imparting information to the people, it is generally a conversation, which is very pleasing and goes on very well.
Ever wondered about the background to steeplechasing? Well, I'm in the right place to find out. Seemingly it has connections to Cahermee Horse Fair. As we heard last week, Napoleon and the Duke of Wellington sent their people here to purchase good quality stock. Napoleon ended up with his famous charger Marengo, and Wellington ended up in Waterloo with his mount Copenhagen. Catherine Roach has no doubts whatsoever about one still being able to purchase a good quality horse at Cahermee.
Oh, of course, absolutely. It's our shop window, you know. I mean, there's a great history of horsemanship and equestrianism around Buttevant, and not only for Cahermee Fair, arising from a wager back in 1752. 2 locals, Edmund Blake and Cornelius O'Callaghan, had a wager from the Church of Ireland here in Buttevant, St. John's, to the St. Mary's Church of Ireland in Doneraile. So that's steeple to steeple. So that's where we get the term steeplechase that we use today. Yeah.
And that was about 4 miles.
Yeah, roughly that. Yeah. And then, of course, in more recent years, a local man, Colm O'Donoghue, has had great success in flat racing. He has an Irish Derby under his belt, and that's just one of his more notable achievements. So there's a very strong connection with all things to do with horses here in Buttevant.
And how long does it take then for the fair to wind down? A few days afterwards, or?
Well, it probably takes people a few days to recover, you know, but any tourist passing through Buttevant, I suppose, the morning after the fair would wonder what had happened the day before, because you have lots of things left over. But in fairness to the local authority, they're great to do the clean up, and everything gets back into ship shape very quickly. So we're very grateful to them for that.
And this year's event, how did it go off?
It went off very well. I think people were pleased with the trade. They might have said it was a little quieter on the day itself, but there was a lot of trading done on the night before. So I think people were happy enough with that.
Yeah, and fantastic that it actually organises itself.
Oh, it is, absolutely. I mean, the thing about it is there's lots of horse sales now around the country, but the horse fairs are still there. They're still holding their own because of they're part of the fabric of our society. I mean, horse fairs have their own culture, their own kind of language. You'd hear about dealers and drovers and tanglers and blockers and all that kind of thing. And And there are quite a lot of well-known horse dealing families in Ireland who would be regulars to Carramee, and they would have purchased horses who maybe would have gone on to achieve success on the equestrian stage, not only at home but internationally, and they've been very successful. So I mean, that's fantastic, because it's a shop window for our horse breeding industry, you know.
As well as history and archaeology, Buttevant also has strong links with music. In the third and final programme from the town next week, we paid tribute to the late Connie Buckley, who played with many bands including Michael O'Callaghan. Connie also was instrumental, if you'll pardon the pun, in starting Carramee Singers. But for this week, I'm off to meet Anne-Marie Lenihan, who's going to tell me all about Buttevant Choral Society, of which she's a member.
Well, there's a choral music in Buttevant. Started back in 1954. A priest came to Buttevant from Coastford, Father Sheehan, and he was a great singer himself, and he got around to everybody that he thought could sing, and we got together and we ended up with about 50 in the choir, and we had a great way of meeting people and getting to know people, and we've in 54 that was, and the following year we competed in the International Choral Festival in Cork, and we didn't win that year. I think we came second, and we competed in the International Choral Festival for several years while we were in the choral group.
Yeah, that's a big event, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
And is it normally held in the City Hall?
It is,
yeah.
Yes. Then we went to the Oireachtas in the Mansion House. We won a couple of competitions there, which was a great highlight for us. And from there, the choir kept going, and we did lots of concerts in halls here in Buttevant. And eventually Father Sheehan was moved on, and the choir kept going, but it dwindled a bit and numbers were moving in different places. But Sister Oliver was here then in the convent, and she took over the choir. She also had the church choir, and church music is very dear to me, as well as the choral music. We do 4 parts singing in church every Sunday, and we also have a choir in Lisgriffin. We had a choir there, and I was involved in that for many, many years. And at the moment there's the Oliver Plunkett Choir, then it became the Carramee Singers. They moved on from that, and that was led that time by Connie Buckley. He started it off. The Carramee Singers now is also, the conductor is his daughter, Helen Fitzpatrick. School choirs are very important. I think that's where all the singing really begins. And I suppose, like myself, I was in Lisgriffin and we were involved in singing there. And the same here, the schools here, they have lovely choirs. I've heard them recently in church and that, and they're outstanding. And there's also a folk group here, and that's going very well. It's for the younger groups, and there's quite a lot involved in that as well.
When Peggy Thornhill married her now late husband Bat, his inter-county hurling career was over. Bat had played full-back for Cork during the Thunder and Lightning final of 1939 against Kilkenny, and he was also a member of the Cork hurling team who won 4 All-Irelands in a row between 1941 and 1944. Bat was a barber by trade, and his barber shop here in Buttevant was a mecca for all hurling fans, with a mixture of roguery and fun thrown in for good measure.
That is so true. The barber shop, I had a brother that was here one Saturday night, and they were all playing games and whatnot. So anyhow, something happened that somebody stood on his foot and hurted his ankle. So he wasn't able, he cycled up the town, but he wasn't able to cycle back. I think he was taken back. But a few days afterwards, he wanted to come up to the bookies. And I was told to come and collect his bicycle. It was here. And it was so funny. This is so funny. I came in and I said to Matt, I said, could I please have my brother's bicycle? Oh, he said, it's in there in the kitchen. And the next thing was, as I was passing through with the bicycle, he was shaving a man on the chair. And he turned around and he had this brush with a whole lot of soap in it, and as I was passing by, he docked me in the face with the, and I'm telling, he was always full of fun and full of life, and saw nothing wrong or bad about anybody. He was a good Christian, and he was very well known too, very well known.
Coming up, the poem composed in the barbershop in darkness on a stormy night in 1948. It's all in part 3 of programme 2 from Buttevant in a few short moments.
Where the Road Takes Me with John Greene on C103.
Welcome back to Where the Road Takes Me and to part 3 in programme 2 from Buttevant. Well, when Bath Thornhill hung up his inter-county hurling boots, the Buttevant clubman's barbershop became the venue for discussion forums. Subjects up for debate ranged from hurling, of course, to local, national and worldly events. Even poetry was composed, as did happen on a night when all lighting went on the blink in Buttevant town. It happened on Saturday, February 23rd, 1948. Peggy Thornhill now takes up the story of what happened that night in her late husband's barbershop.
Oh, that is so funny, I must say. The boys used to come in every night, and all Sunday afternoon they'd be playing cards here in the shop. The door was open to them all. And I remember saying to Bet one time, coming down the street late, I said, the only light on the street was the barber shop. And I said, aren't you silly, leaving the lights on like that all the time? And he said, aren't they better off in there than being in a pub? That's what he said. So anyhow, they arrived in anyhow, the usual playing cards. And the next thing, the lights went off on the streets. No, there was no light to be seen anywhere, and the boys were here in the dark, and they decided to compose a song or a verse, a poem, and it was called The Barber's Double Burner. So that's how the Barber's Double Burner was composed.
And it was composed in darkness.
In darkness, yeah. That's right, yeah. So did you want me to read it?
Please do.
The Barber's Double Burner. As February was declining, a leap year as you know, in the busy street of Buttevant the fog was lying low. When they turned down the switches, the lights they failed to show. Outside was dear old Johann, and he razzing up his bow. John O'Connell was the pity, as he looked upon his meat. He had 4 candles lighting, and couldn't stand the heat. Out walked dear Johnny Cahill, with a frown upon his face. I'm thinking, boys, said he, this is the finish of our race. The barber, he was pondering what he was best to do. He called upon the Connaughton to go and find the clue. Alas, alas, said poor old Con, I'll tell you what to do. I'll go and fetch the number 1, the brave and bold Sabu. In walked dear May Sheehan, she being good and loyal. Said she unto the barber, do you want some paraffin oil? Big obs, says Bat, I'll think of that, as it is a dreadful state. The customers are piling in, and 'tis getting very late. It was then he called a council of all the class around. I'll tell you what we want, there must a lamp be found. I think there's one upstairs, lads, if only had the wick. I'll go and fetch it down, boys, 'twill surely do the trick. There was one thing more we want to make this job just right, and that is to get a globe to make a fine bright light. I think we have solved the problem. We'll hang it on the wall. The Barber's Double Burner, it's the best light of them all. And this was composed by the Buttevant Happy Gang on Saturday night, February the 23rd, 1948, when all the lights went out on the street.
Lovely memento to have.
It is nice. And it was one of the nuns but before she died, she painted it and did it all up and gave it to him. And I thought it was a lovely thing, isn't it? Very nice. These are the candles and the light and the globe. And she did all this, which was wonderful.
And beautiful handwriting, as only nuns have.
That's right. Oh, sure, they're perfect with their handwriting, and they really, really love it, you know. So that was that.
An historical tour of Buttevant will usually last for an hour and a half. All key sites are within close proximity of each other. Anne Coughlin is one of the tour guides with Buttevant Heritage Group, and she says that all the sites are part of a network of a functioning town.
Our key sites are the tour takes about an hour and a half. It usually stretches longer than that because conversation takes over, and each of those sites is easy walking distance. And the town was organised, it's all logical too, because the town was designed as a functioning unit, so the sites are part of a network of a functioning town, so they're all very close to one another as well.
And if I was to meet you here today and say, look, I haven't time to take the entire tour, I've only 15 minutes, what's the most interesting place in Buttevant from your point of view?
Well, you see, now Lillian is looking at me now, and I'm sure Lillian will think, there's a certain answer to that, but I have a bias. I prefer St. John's Graveyard.
Yeah,
that's my favourite spot.
And why is that?
Why is that? Well, for me, it's the place where we'll say pagan Ireland, early Christian Ireland, Reformation Ireland, the Anglo-Normans, the wall, the external wall of the town, they're all there in that site, because St. Bridget, who is a sister to St. Coleman, our patron saint, that was her site. The church there was named for her. So from that point of view, there's the most incredible, it's where everything comes together for me. But it's also the site of a very famous Church of Ireland church designed by the Payne brothers. It's a magnificent structure to look at, to just feast your eyes on it. It's absolutely beautiful.
That's St. John's, is it?
St. John's, yeah. You also have a magnificent view of the castle, beautiful view out of the castle, Buttevant Castle. And you have the steeplechase. It was the site of the beginning of the steeplechase. And for me then personally as well, what I always notice about the tour, when it comes to that point of the tour, people often just go off by themselves and just examine the graveyard and start thinking about themselves, and start chatting between themselves. And it's a lovely space as well, where people start thinking about what they've seen on the tour. And it's one thing that I never fail to not notice. I always notice it about that site as well. The other thing is, it is also a very active and interesting site from a historical perspective, in that an awful lot of people still visit the church grounds today, tracing their ancestors, particularly those who might have had family in the barracks, those who might have gone to war from World War I from Buttevant, so that there's an active interest in those who are interned in the graveyard still, and I think that's very that speaks to another important part of our history, which was our military history.
Last week on Programme 1, we spoke to Mary O'Donoghue about her role as a community activist. But Mary is also familiar to C103 listeners as Buttevant's regional reporter.
And that came about through being a member of the Community Council. They asked me would I do, get involved in doing the report every week, which I've done that now as well for I don't know how many years. And in between I have done other programmes. We did This Is Your Life. Maureen Guiney, who lived at the other end of town, she was a publican and she was an elderly lady and a great musician as well. So I did a programme for her for This Is Your Life. And I just like to be involved. I'm still doing the radio. Now it's online, you move forward as you know. But I'm still doing it.
Still doing it. Nothing under this world would prize you away from Buttevant?
No, gosh, no. No, I love London when I lived there, but you have to be young to live there too, And I met great friends while I was there, and they're still my friends, but home is where the heart is.
Time now for some music from Buttevant, and on next week's programme we pay tribute to musician and singer, the late Connie Buckley. We hear his music and speak to members of his family, friends and fellow musicians. But for this week, let's listen to Connie's daughter, Tina Ring, with Dan Noonan. They're singing a song recorded by Peters and Lee entitled Don't Stay Away Too Long.
It's time that you are going, and there's no way of knowing how long we'll be apart. Wherever life may lead you, remember how I need you. Keep our love locked in your heart. Whoa, whoa, jet planes flying high above me. Don't stay away too long. Come back, darling, say you love me. Don't stay away too long. Tell me you'll be thinking of me each time you hear this song. We'll love again some other day. Don't stay away too long. I miss you every minute. My world without you in it is such an empty place. When days in rainy weather, as long as we're together, there is nothing we can't face. Whoa, whoa, jet planes flying high above me. Don't stay away too long. Come back, darling, say you love me. Don't stay away too long. Tell me you'll be thinking of me each time you hear this song. We love again some other day. Don't stay away too long. Whoa, whoa, jet planes flying high above me. Don't stay away too long. Come back, darling, say you love me. Don't stay away too long. Tell me you'll be thinking of me each time you hear this song. We love again some other day. Don't stay away too long. We love again some other day. Don't stay away too long.
Just to tell you how Carmi is known worldwide, I was in the States on holidays a number of years ago with friends, and we decided to take a carriage ride in Central Park. So I got talking to the driver anyway, and he was from Mayo, and he asked me where I was from, and I said I was from Buttevant, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, Carmi." It was the first thing out of his mouth. So I said, "Oh, how do you know about that?" He said, "When I lived at home," he said, "I came every year. I wouldn't miss it." And he was very anxious to know how the fair went that particular year, and he was all excited about it. So, I mean, Carmi is part of our heritage here in Buttevant. It's part of our history and our town. It's a tradition that we are and we should be very proud of, because not too many places in Ireland have what the people of Buttevant and the surrounding areas have. Carmi will continue for generations to come, and I hope that anyone who visits here will enjoy the visit, will sample the atmosphere and the hospitality, and of course have a very safe and pleasant visit, and of course come back to visit us.
And that was Catherine Roach, summing up the history and importance of Cahermy Horse Fair, held annually in Buttevant on July 12th. There's more places to visit and more people to speak to in part 3 of programme 2 from Buttevant, should you wish to come back to us, and I hope you will, in a few moments.
Where the Road Takes Me with John Greene on C103.
During street renovations last year in Buttevant, significant and unexpected archaeological discoveries were made which date back to the 14th century. Buttevant is now known to have a medieval background, and this was supported when part of a gate arch, now assumed to be the north gate of this medieval town, was found. This was actually referred to back in 1375. The remains of a town wall, a cobbled street, and an underground chamber were also discovered last year. So what exactly was this underground chamber part of, and what was it used for? At the mill, I meet Noel Coleman from Buttevant Heritage Society to find out.
Well, it may have been a kind of a castle. We have a resident archaeologist in the heritage group, and he was thinking it might have been a burgher castle.
All right, yeah.
And it might have been a storeroom down under the ground, and the steps were in great condition, and it pointed to a very definite, important past for the town.
And the works on the footpaths are still going on. What's the situation with the find now?
The finds now are being examined by the archaeologists, or the head archaeologist there. We had him for a heritage day here in early July, and he's working on the findings. Some of the findings have to be carbon dated, and that's going on, and we're promised a preliminary report in the very near future, and then the final report will eventually be published some time in the future, so we're awaiting that.
As we approach the end of the second programme from Buttevant, I'm sure you now know about the town's very interesting past. But the town is on the N20, a busy thoroughfare to and from Limerick. So how do you get people to stop here? Lillian Sheehan is a founder member of Buttevant Heritage Group, and they may be getting close to finding a solution.
Well, that is the big problem. I've been there watching the traffic for years, and if you could only get 5% of it to stop, the town would absolutely boom. And we figured, as I was rearing my family, I was very aware of all the history that was around, because as a youngster going to school, I was always very interested in history. But during rearing my family, I was too busy to pay any attention to it. But I've often figured if some of that traffic could be stopped, the whole town would benefit hugely. So then about 3 years ago, we decided to put up murals, one depicting the Barrys and the Lombards, and some of the structures that the Barrys had erected in the early years of their dominance of the area. And the other one that we put up was on the steeplechase. Then we did notice that people were stopping and getting photographs taken with these murals, and then they were hopping into the cars and going off again. So we figured we had to do something about trying to hold them in the town.
And how do you do that?
And
I suppose parking is the main thing.
Yeah. No, but if you could get them onto the street and hold them there. So this is where the tour guiding group comes into play. As I got involved with the Heritage Group, about 9 or 10 years ago, I really figured a tour guide group was going to be important. Somebody to show people around was going to be important, but I didn't want to be the sole person doing it, because you'd need to have a live life apart from it when you're doing it on a voluntary basis. So about 3 years ago then I invited Anne and Tommy and a few more into the group who were very enthusiastic about history, and they have then got this tour guide grouping going and dress up, and they are absolutely becoming more and more professional at doing it, and then that helps to hold people in town.
And I suppose you've really answered my question. How has the Heritage Group progressed since you founded it?
Well, I suppose it has progressed from being a talking shop. And actually, when I got involved initially about 9 or 10 years ago, the Canon Harrington, who was about to retire or preparing to retire, had also noticed all this heritage in the area, and it was not doing anything for the economy locally. So he called the group together then. And by then, the last of my children had finished in college, and I was able to attend. And before I knew where I was landed with secretary, chairman, or whatever of it, because of my enthusiasm for the subject. And I suppose you have to be enthusiastic, you see, to want to do this type of thing. And you have to like history and like meeting people and stuff. And the current group now are absolutely excellent, and they're very good, like the natural drama people and everything. They dress up, and it makes the whole thing far more interesting and entertaining and stuff.
Having won 4 All-Ireland Senior Hurling medals in a row with Cork between 1941 and 1944, Bat Thornhill's opinion on hurling was sought right up to the day he died almost. This brought with it many opportunities to travel, but according to his wife Peggy, Buttevant was where his heart always remained.
This is where he wanted to stay. I think he was very happy here, and he was very involved with the youngsters, and anything that was happening in the town, Bat would have to be involved in it. Whether he'd want to be it or not, he'd have to be there. So he had a lot of meetings to go to between the hurling and between fireside chats and between the Winton Atira and also between the carnivals. He had meetings every night, and he never had a dull moment. Never had a dull moment. And Bat was very well known. And I don't know why he married me, because he had other girls and plenty of them.
He passed away then, unfortunately, in October of 1970.
Indeed,
had he been
yes.
ill for some time?
Just about 12 months. He wasn't feeling well for 12 months. And I was told on the 15th of August that he wasn't going to be around. And that broke my heart. Mm-hmm. Really and truly. I will never forget that, you know. It was sad to be without him, because we were only married for about 15 years. About 15 years.
Was that all, yeah?
That's all. And he is about 45 years dead now. I miss him today as much as the day he died, you know.
And as well as missing him, you're as proud of him as ever.
I am indeed. And sometimes I feel he's around. It's a funny thing. My son Edward was out one day, and he was late coming in to his lunch, and I had his lunch in the oven outside, and he came right in. Now I was standing here in the front room, and Edward was outside getting his dinner out of in the kitchen, and we both heard this, "Mind Edward, mind Edward." And Edward turned around to me and said, "Was that Daddy that was talking?" And I heard the very same as Edward did. We heard somebody talking as he was taking the dinner out of the oven. "Mind Edward." And Edward said, "Mom, was that Daddy that was talking?" So it was extraordinary, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That we were both in different places, and he heard the same voice as I did. And I was in the living room, he was in the kitchen, you know. So I thought that was strange, you know. And he would always love to take the children. He'd always be happy to have the children going to Mass with him and going to the Rosary. every night. He was very good, and I wanted the children to be with him, and he wanted to be there for them all the time. So when he did get sick, I would send children upstairs to keep him company and sit beside him in the bed, and he would always turn them away because he just didn't want to feel sad about them, and he didn't want them to be sad either, you know.
How easy or difficult is it now to get new members into the Choral Society?
Not easy. You will get the odd one, all right. Yeah, now and again you do get some new people even into the place that would join a choir. But it's not easy to keep the numbers up.
Because I presume there's a lot of people out there who think they're Mario Lanzas and Caruso's, but there are other people out there who have lovely voices, may not realise they have, and I bet you'd love to get your hands on them.
Absolutely, because even here in town now there is music in lots of the bars, and we'll have them here, a place here at Maureen's Bar, and they're lovely singers there, but they still won't join a choir, did you say? Yeah. And they're lovely singers, but I suppose people just, they don't feel they don't feel adequate maybe sometimes to be in a choir, and that shouldn't stop them, because anyone that once they can sing, they in a group, it's grand.
And how many members would you have at the moment, roughly?
Well, I suppose there are about 22 or 3 in the church choir, I'd say, and we have a conductor, and Susan O'Keefe actually, and Lil O'Toole plays the organ. That's the 11:30 mass every Sunday.
So if there's somebody listening at the moment now and feels that he or she has a lovely voice, what should they do?
They just come along, even they meet somebody that they know that's in the choir, and ask them would they be welcome, which they would, of course. Anyone that would like to join is always welcome.
Unfortunately, I can't join because you don't take any jackdaws. So.
Well, even that, anyone that maybe give a joke or have say something, we enjoy that too.
So where would you like to see the Choral Society going from here? What future lies ahead for it now?
I'd like to see choral music continue, and like as I say, there is great music in the schools, and maybe that it will be revised, and that it will improve because of that. Mm-hmm. As people are shy about joining these things, some of them, but now seeing that the schools are so involved in choirs, and that they might get, hopefully they would get involved in either the Carmi singers, that kind of singing, or the church choir.
Anne-Marie Lenihan from Buttevant Choral Society. Well, I have spoken often on these 2 programmes about the rich history of Buttevant, but the military history of the town is a subject I intend to return to. Anne Coughlin is a tour guide with the local heritage group, and she says that modern-day Buttevant still shows up signs of its military past.
What fascinates me about Buttevant, I suppose as an outsider, I would notice things that people would take for granted in their everyday life. But if you notice the shop fronts of up and down both sides of the street, like every house there was a business or a trade or premises. There was business going on in every premises, and a lot of that would have related directly to the barracks, the military barracks, which was such an important part of the social and economic fabric of the town, and the graveyard responds to that as well. So the one thing that we're very conscious of that part of our heritage as well, and being the centenary of the 1916, we're hosting an exhibition to mark the centenary of the 1916, and we're doing that on the 2nd of September coming. And what we're doing is we're having an exhibition in the Muintrina Hall, and Francis Trim is particularly involved in this because he has a particular interest in this part of our heritage, and he has prepared this amazing exhibition which will look at the 1916 Rising and how it relates to North Cork in particular. Then he's expanding that to look at the history of the military barracks with the most amazing photographs, some of which hadn't been that readily available up until now. And then he's expanding it out further to look at the War of Independence and how it related to North Cork, in particular to this area. And seeing as it's the centenary of the Battle of the Somme, he's also recognising that and offering space to that in the exhibition as well. So it's a free event. All are welcome. We'd love to see as many people as possible to come to see the 1916 exhibition. There's an incredible amount of work gone into it, with an incredible amount of resources to be seen, and it's something that we're really excited about, and we're really getting to promote that now.
Next week, in the final programme from Buttevant, we're in McCarthy's Bar for a programme which pays tribute to the late musician of renown, Connie Buckley. We'll be joined by family, friends and fellow musicians. The programme will also include some of Connie's recordings. In the meantime, my thanks to everybody who took part this evening, to John Foot on sound, and you, of course, for your company. Where the Road Takes Me is now available for playback on our website, c103.ie. But for now, from everybody in Buttevant and myself, John Greene, enjoy the remainder of your Sunday and have a safe and enjoyable week.
Where the Road Takes Me with John Greene on C103.